Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video in the Spigot series. In this episode I'm going to show you how to do particles. For a long time now you guys have been asking for a particles video, so I'm going to show you how to do that using the Spigot bucket API. So there's two ways you can do particles. Generally speaking, you can do with packets or you can do it using the built-in Spigot API. There's already a particle API built into Spigot that you can use, which is much easier than working with packets. Way easier. So I'm going to show you how to do that. It's kind of complicated when you're first looking at it just because it's very a little, the methods are a little overwhelming with all the information it's presenting to you. So let me just go ahead and break it down so that you can understand it. So you can use particles in your plugins, okay? So the primary resource that I'm using for this video is this right here, this guide. I'll leave a link for this in the description below so you can check it out if you want to and read it yourself. But it gives a very good introduction into particles in Bucket, Spigot, and it shows you how you can use them in different types of particles like directional particles, color particles, material particles, vibration particles. It gives you a lot of information, so it's very useful. So I'm basically using that to make this video, so if you're interested, check it out. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is create a new listener class so we can have it when a player moves is spawned to particle. That way we can easily test the particles. So we're going to call it a movement listener. So there's two different ways you can spawn particles using the Spigot API. You can either spawn particles for the entire world, or you can spawn particles for an individual player for them to see. So the one I'm going to use for this video is just the one for individual player. Since we have just one player on the server, there's no need to spawn particles for everyone on the server. But if you do want to do that, you can get the world, so e.get player.get world, and then you can do spawn particle. And so if you do Control Q, it says spawns the particle at the target location, and then everyone will be able to see it if they're within range of the particle. So, and this is why it's overwhelming. You have so many overloaded versions of this method here with so many parameters that you can use, and it's very overwhelming. But first we're going to create a new player object because we're going to spawn it just for a single player, just to keep it really simple. So player P is equal to e.get player. Okay, alright, so how can we spawn a single particle? So you can do p.spawn particle, and the first thing you want to provide for any of these is just the particle itself. So particle dot, and then you have all these particles to choose from, so you can look through all of these here. But we're just going to choose one. There's one, let's do bubble pop, so we should get like a little bubble, which is cool. We're going to do the bare minimum, which is like the method with the smallest amount of parameters. So you're going to have the location of where to spawn the particle. So we're just going to do p.get location. So this will get the player's location, basically at their feet. And then the count, which is the third parameter that's asking for, is the amount of particles to spawn. And if we do 1, it'll just be 1. So let's see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and register this event listener here and throw it into the server. So get server.get plugin manager at register events, new movement listener, this. So let me go ahead and throw this in the server, and I'll be right back so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm joining the server now. So as we move, we should see bubbles. And it's very small, but if you look closely, it's right there at the bottom of my feet. Got little bubbles. Let me see if I can give you a better view. So there we go, we get little bubbles every time we move. So every time the player move event is triggered, we spawn a bubble at our feet. Great. So obviously that's not very noticeable, so let's go ahead and choose a different one. And also let's go ahead and see how we can spawn more than one, or what it looks like when we spawn more than one particle. So we'll do 50 particles, which is kind of a lot. And then we'll change the particle to, let's do something like a lava. How about dripping lava? That's a really cool effect. So let's go ahead and throw this in the server. Okay, added, there we go. So now we have dripping lava, which looks really cool in my opinion. So as we run around, you can see it placed at our feet. So if you want to make a Trails plugin, this is essentially how you would do it. You can just have it spawn a particle every time the player move event is triggered. So if you do want to see me make a Trails plugin, a very simple Trails plugin that is configurable and has like a fully set up system, then let me know in the comment section below, and I'll make a video on that if enough people want to see that. I'll fully code it out so y'all can see how to do something like that. But anyway, so this is what 50 particles looks like for this one. For different types of particle, every particle is different, right? So for different types of particles, the the settings that you provide into the spawn particle method are going to affect it differently than it'll affect other particles. So if we were to do something different, if we were to change the particle to something else, then it would look very, very different, most likely. A lot of the time it does, at least. So that's how you can do that. That's how you can spawn a single particle or multiple particles at a single location. If we want to do something like spawn it at our head level or like above our head instead of just at our feet, we can do p.get eye location. Get our eye level, yeah, eye location. So that'll spawn it at our head in case you want to know how to do that. And if you want to change the location based upon the player's current location, like even farther above their head, you can do p.get location, which returns a location object, which you can then do add on it. So you can add it. So you can do, let's say you want to add it by 2. So then you're adding 2 to the y-axis on the location object, on the y-coordinate on the location object. So it'll be even higher. In case you want to edit the location for a particle, okay? So I changed the particle to Dragon Breath, and this is what this looks like. So 2 above our current eye level. And yeah, this one looks very crazy. So like I said a second ago, depending on the particle that you have, the settings are going to affect it differently. And because this is such a crazy particle effect, having 50 of these spawned at one time is, going to make it look insane. So it's a pretty cool effect. You can play with that as you wish. But let's see what else we can do. So another one of the options I'm going to show you are the offset options. So first let's choose a particle. We'll do particle.falling lava again. Particle.falling lava. And then the location will just be the player's feet. So p.get location. The count will be 50. That's good enough. And the offset options that I'm telling you about are right here. So double offset X, double offset Y, double offset Z. So these will tell it how far away you can spawn the particles. So if you provide values for these, the spawning of the particles will be randomized based upon the location, based upon the offset that you provide. So let's say that you provide a offset of 0 for the X, 20 for the Y, and then 0 for the Z. This means that the particle will always spawn at this location in terms of the X and Z coordinates, but for the Y coordinate it can vary by 20. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So this is what this looks like. Really cool, right? That's so cool. A nice raining lava effect. Kind of looks like blood, doesn't it? So essentially, even though we're telling the particle to spawn at p.get location, because we told it to have a y offset of 20, it's going to vary by 20 on the y coordinate. So that's why you get that kind of effect right there. Now, if we want to make this look even cooler, we can also have the X and the Z vary. So we can have, we can do stuff like 3D shapes in a way. We can do, we can spread it out more. So we're going to set it to 50 for the X offset, 20 for the Y offset, and then 50 for the Z offset. So essentially it'll vary on the X by 50, vary on the Y by 20, and then vary on the Z by 20. So let's see what this looks like. There we go. So now you get these spread out particles because it's randomized, right? So they can only spawn so many at a time. So it's not going to be as condensed as we saw it a second ago. Because the X and the Z variations are very far apart. 50 is a lot. So it can't be very dense, if that makes any sense. So they're there if you look closely. Might be hard to see on your screen, but you get a lava rain, which is kind of cool. So if maybe you want to make a plugin that has a cool effect called lava rain or something like that, this would be some way that you could do that. But one more effect that I'm going to show you using the same offset concept is if we set the Y offset to 0, and then the X to 5, and then the Z to 5. So everything will be close together now, so you're not going to get too much variation. So you should see more particles over time. So it's going to be more condensed. Yeah. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. All right. So this is what it looks like. It's really cool in my opinion. It's like I don't even know what to call it. It's sort of like a rain on the ground. As you walk around, you have this layer of lava droplets that are just placed around you. So really cool, and it demonstrates the offset effect really well, because you can see that since it's varying on the X and Z coordinates, it's spreading out in either direction by 5. So that's really cool. So that's like the basics for spawning particles. That's how you can do it on a very basic level. But let's see how we can do something called directional particles. So directional particles. So these are particles that you can send in a certain direction. You can give them like a velocity and they'll travel in that direction at that certain velocity. That's essentially how it looks. So if we want to do a directional particle, there's only certain particles that support this. According to the person who wrote this, these are the particles that are affected by directional. These are the directional particles. So let's go ahead and try some of these out to see what we get. So let's do p.spawn particle, and first you're going to choose the particle. So one of the directional particles that I want to show you is the totem particle. So we can do particle.totem. And then next you got to provide the location, simple enough. So we'll do p.getLocation. And then to set it as a directional particle, you set the count to 0. So set it to 0. And then the x, y, and z offsets will become essentially the velocities in each of those directions. So if you want like an x velocity, if you want it to go like left or whatever x is, you can set it to like 20 and it'll like zoom to the x direction. If you want it to go straight upward, you can set 0, 5, 0, and it'll just go straight up. So let's go ahead and see how that looks like. So if we do want it to go straight up, we'll do 0, 1, 0. So the x offset will be 0. So essentially you're having like a speed of 0 in the x direction, or the x coordinate plane, and then z is going to be 0, and then y will be 1. So let's test this out to see what it looks like. Here we go. So as we move, we get a directional totem particle. It's shot up in the air, and then it looks like gravity is affecting it, so it falls back down, which is pretty cool too. So if you move around, we can get a cool spiral effect. Very nice. So let's do some other stuff like smoke large, and then again, you set for directional particles, you have the count set as 0, and then the x, y, and z will be the velocities for each of the coordinate planes. So let's say that we want to send it sideways. So let's try something like that. So we'll do like 2, 0, 2, and this is really just something you have to experiment with. It looks like, so you can't really know for sure how fast it's going to be. I think every particle is different because certain particles, they go upwards on their own. So for example, a smoke particle, I think, travels upward. So if it's already going upward and you give it a vertical velocity of 2, then it's going to travel upward faster than another particle that does not travel upward on its own, if that makes any sense. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but that's just what I've noticed when I tested this out on my own. But yeah, let's test this out now. So we have an offset of 2 for the x, and then an offset of 2 for the z, and then the y is left to 0. So it should not go upward except for the default functionality of the smoke particle. There we go. So now we get smoke particles. They are shooting out sideways. You can see that they're very, very fast. So 2 seems to be a big number for this. So it seems that when it hits another block, the velocity cancels out, so it simulates physics. It makes sense because it's hitting something, the velocity will go away because it's encountering another force, and therefore it just goes upward from there because the vertical velocity has not been affected. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty cool. So that's how you can do basic directional particles. So now let's look at colorized particles, which are particles that are obviously colored, and you can use those using redstone dust particles. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So these are fun to play with as well. So we can do p.spawn particle, and then the particle we can use for colorized particles is the redstone dust particle, or just redstone in this case. So then we give it a location as normal, so we'll do get iLocation. And the count will be just the same as regular particles that you would spawn. So we're going to set our count to 50 so we can have a good amount. And this fourth parameter here is where it gets special. This is where we can customize the coloration options. And to do that, we use something called dust options. So dust options is equal to new dust options. And the first parameter is going to be the color. This can be any color, so you can do any RGB color. And if you want to do RGB colors, you can do color.from RGB or BGR. You can choose whatever. So we're going to do RGB, and you can provide the RGB codes for that if you want to use that. But we're just going to use one of the preset colors. We're going to do I'm just going to use red, so color.red. And the second parameter is going to be the size of the particle. So I'm going to do 2.0. This is going to be a float, and the default is going to be 1.0. So if we want to double that, we'll set it to 2.0, and we'll see how that looks. Actually, we'll do the default so we can go ahead and see what the default looks like. So we're going to have a dust options object with the color of red and a size of 1.0. And then you provide that as the parameter to the spawn particle method. And so what this will do is spawn a redstone particle with the effect that you told it to, with the options that you have set here. So it should be colorized. Obviously redstone is going to be red by default. So let's go ahead and set this to something like blue so we can see how that looks. So I can prove to you that it's actually, using these options here to change the color of the particle. Anyway, so let's go ahead and see how this looks. We should get 50 blue redstone particles with the size of 1. There we go, look at this. So as we move around, we get blue redstone particles, or dust particles. Awesome, right? And this is what the default size looks like, because 1.0 is the default size. So if we want to make this bigger, we can set it to something like 5. Let's see how that looks. Look at that. It's huge now. So now you got a giant colorized redstone dust particle thingy floating above your head. So if you want to make this even cooler, you can make it so it's like changing color over time using the RGB dust options. But there's actually a built-in way to transition the color of your dust particles over time. Let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So instead of using this dust options object here, we can use dust transition. Dust transition is equal to new dust transition. So the first parameter, they're pretty self-explanatory, is the first color, like the initial color of the particle. So we'll have it as red by default. And then after that, we want to have it transition over time to another color. We'll have it transition to gold. So color.gold. We can't do that, can we? We have to use RGB for that. What's the RGB code? RGB for gold. So it's going to be 212, 175, 55. So that should be the RGB code for gold. And the third parameter is going to be the size. So we'll do 5.0 again, just to have it big and noticeable. And then you just provide it into the fourth parameter as we did before. Okay, so it's very similar to the first dust options object that we used to colorize our dust particles, but this time I'm using a dust transition object to have it transition from one color to another color, and then we can also still have the size there. So we should get 50 dust particles of the size 5 transitioning from red to gold as they're alive. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how that looks. Oh, I see why it's not working. We forgot to do something. So if we go back to our code, instead of using a redstone particle, you have to use a dust color transition particle. So it's a special particle used just for this dust transition. So let's try this out. So if you look closely here, it's over time changing to gold, as you can see here. Awesome, right? So different combinations of colors are going to look better, of course, but that's how this looks from red to gold. So obviously memorizing all of these methods here and how to use them, how to do different types of particles is going to be very tricky. So what I'm going to do is leave the code for this episode in the description below so you can check it out and come back to it at any time, so you can view the code and not have to rewatch the video if you want to learn how to do this again. Or you can just check out the guide that I showed you before. It's explained better than I'm explaining it. Okay, there are 2 more types of particles that I want to show you. The first is going to be material particles, and then the last one is going to be vibration particles. Okay, so material particles are essentially particles that change their appearance based upon the block that you assign to it. And there's different types that you can use, but I'm going to just give you one example here. So it's going to be using a block data object. So we're going to create, make sure you import that. So we're going to do a falling dust material particle. So the dust will change depending on the block that you base it on. So for example, if you break a stone block, it's going to have like a stone block effect. If you break a redstone block, it's going to have a redstone block effect. So depending on the blocks that you break, the particles associated with them are going to be different. So in this case, we're going to do falling dust. So falling dust data is equal to material dot stone dot create. What is this material? There we go. Dot create block data. So we're going to create a block data based upon a stone block, and we're going to provide that. So p.spawn particle, if I can spell it. And according to the guide, by the way, the different particles that support these types of material block data thingies here is the item crack particle, the block crack particle, the block dust particle, and the falling dust particle. So those are the ones that you can use, and yeah, okay. So For the item crack particle, by the way, you're going to use an item stack rather than a block data object. So depending on the item that you provide for the item crack particle, you're going to get a different appearance essentially. So play around with that if you want. So spawn particle, particle falling dust, and the second parameter will just be the location. So p.getLocation, and we'll do 10 of them so they're noticeable. And then for the fourth parameter, we're gonna provide our falling dust data. So that's why for some of these methods here, you're gonna have a generic type here, a T, or you're gonna have a block data type, and this is what that is for. You're gonna provide it for the material particles. So falling dust data, which is a block data object, and that should give you a falling dust particle spawned at that location using stone. So let's go ahead and see how that looks. There we go. So now we have a falling dust particle. It's not very noticeable, but there it is. And it looks gray because it's based on stone. So if we were to change this to another block like redstone block, then we would get a red dust appearance. And the materials that are supported by this will be block materials. So you should be able to do is block. So if is block returns true from the material that you're trying to use, then it is supported by this material particle here, because of course you can't create a falling dust particle if it's not provided an actual block to base it upon, right? It doesn't make sense. So let's try doing a redstone block and see how that looks. There we go. So there is a redstone falling dust block. So that's another example of material blocks. So the particle is based upon the material that you provide for the block data. Great, right? Okay, so the last type of particle I want to show you are vibration particles. I didn't even know vibrations were a thing in Minecraft, or vibration particles. But according to the guide, they do. So let me go ahead and show you how you can make them using the guide. So vibration particles. So a vibration particle is based upon the vibration object. So that makes it very easy to configure this. So new vibration is equal to new vibration. So the first thing is going to be the origin of where the vibration starts. And we're just going to set it equal to the player's current location. And so then you can have a destination, which is going to be new destination. What is it? So you have two different types of destinations. You have a block destination or an entity destination. So this just helps it determine where to send the vibration to. So if we want to send it from the player's current location to another player, we can use the entity destination thingy here. So we can create a destination that is based upon an entity like a player or another type of entity. So the vibration will start at the player's current location and then move to, wherever else. Of course, it's based upon the same player, so it's not really going to move much. But if we send it to another player, then it's going to move from that player to another player, which is a cool effect. And then, of course, you can use a block destination, which is cool too. And the final parameter for your control P is the arrival time. So this is the amount of time it takes to travel from point A to point B. And this will be just the duration in ticks. So we're going to set ours to 400. And so to spawn the particle now, simple enough. So spawn particle, it'll be a vibration particle, so vibration. And then we'll set the location. We'll set it to 1 particle. And then the vibration object will be provided as the last parameter. There we go. So very similar to the other types of special particles that we've been using so far. You just use this special utility thing to configure it, and then you provide it as the last parameter to the spawn particle method. So let's go ahead and see how this looks. Okie dokie, this is how it looks, like this. So as you move, the vibrations start to come towards you, sort of, it looks like. Yeah, slowly. It's really, really trippy. I don't even know what a vibration is. I've never heard of this before because I don't really play the game much anymore, but it looks really cool, that's for sure. So maybe you can make something cool with this, some kind of cool effect. I don't know what the heck is happening here. But anyway, that's how you can use a vibration particle. That's how you can set one up. One thing I want to show you now is how to do an animated particle effect. So obviously in more complex plugins, you want to have like particle animations, so like shapes and different effects, like spirals and all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's very hard to do because it depends on like 3D space and math and stuff like that and vectors and all that. And I don't really understand it that well. So I'm just going to show you a very basic example that you can, play around with. But if you guys want to see how to do some more advanced animations, let me know and I'll learn it and I'll make a video on it so you can see how to do that stuff for yourself. So we're going to make a command here just to test this out. So we're going to call it the spiral command because we're going to make a spiral effect. So this will implement command executor. So we're going to get the player P. So player P is equal to player sender. We can use that to spawn the location, or spawn the animation at a certain location. So we're going to get location is equal to p.get I location. So it's going to spawn above the player's head. And we're going to have a radius for our helix, or not helix, our spiral. So to do this animation, we're going to have a task that repeats so that the animation changes over time. And by changes, I just mean the location. So you're going to start at one location, and then as the animation progresses, as the task progresses, it's going to go up and then around like a spiral. So we're going to use a bucket runnable for that. So bucket runnable run. And we're going to say double x is going to be equal to radius times math.cosine location. We're gonna have we need to store the y coordinate, so we're gonna do double y is equal to 0. Okay, so we're gonna use the y coordinate and the radius to come up with an x value, and then the same thing for the z value, except for the z we're gonna use the sine. And this is all like trigonometry and stuff. I don't really understand it. So this is the part that I took from somewhere else. So p dot spawn particle, we're going to use redstone, and we're going to do a colored effect here. So particle redstone location dot add, and then we're going to edit the location based upon the XYZ that we've calculated. So x, y, and then z. So this location here is the location of the player's eye height, the eye location, and then we're just adding on to that to obtain a new location, which is going to change over time with these variables here. They're going to be recalculated every single time, and then the y is going to be incremented, as we're about to see in a second. So that's the location of the spawn particle. We're going to have 50 of them, and we're going to use a dust options for this to make it colored. So new particle dust options, color.aqua. And for the size, we'll do 5.0. So it's a big, giant circle of redstone dust that is aqua color. And then we're going to increment the y value by a certain amount so that the spiral goes up over time. So every time the task runs, it'll increase in height. And therefore, based upon the height increase, we're going to change the x and the z values of the spiral itself. Okay, so we're going to do y plus y is equal to y plus 0.1, and because we're changing the value within a task here, it makes it complicated. So we can use the suggestion here to basically make it an array that we edit instead of having a set variable of a double type. We're using a double array now that is final, and we're just editing it essentially. That's just something you have to do with tasks. There's multiple ways to do it, but that's one way to do it. So now we're going to run this asynchronously. So it's going to be running while everything else is running behind the scenes, essentially. So we're going to do this. The delay will be 0, so it starts right away. But the delay between each particle spawn will be 10 ticks. So that'll be about, I think, half a second. I think 20 ticks is 1 second, so 10 will be half a second. So the plugin, we need an instance of the plugin. So let's go here to the main plugin class and create a thing for that. So private static particles plugin is equal to this, and then code generate getter, boom, and now we can access the plugin instance outside of that. So we can do particles.getPlugin. There we go. So now we're getting a plugin instance. We're creating an asynchronous task that runs every 10 ticks, and what it's going to do is create a spiral effect, hopefully. So spawning a particle every 10 ticks that is going upwards and also going around in a spiral effect using these math functions here in the set radius. So if you want it to be wider, you can change the radius to a different value, and the spiral itself will change depending on that radius. Okay, so let's go ahead and register our plugin command here, and then we're going to see how it looks in the game. Okay, we're reloading now. So the vibrations are still here because we still have the move event, but if we do the spiral command now, we should see the cool spiral effect. Boom. There we go. So it's very slow just because it's only going every half a second, but as you can see, it's going to spiral upwards over time. So if you want to make it go faster, you just set the delay to shorter on the task itself. Looks cool, right? So yeah, not too impressive, but that's how you can make a very simple animation using particles. And like I said, if you want to see a more detailed video on how to do particle animations for more crazy effects, you can let me know and I'll do something like that, as well as a video for a trails plugin, so I can make that as well. Just let me know what you want to see below. Okay, so that's it for this video. Now you should know how to make particles for your plugins on a very basic level, and the different types of particles that you can use, like material particles, directional particles, vibration particles, colorized particles, all kinds of cool stuff. So you can spice up your plugins with particles now. Let me know what else you guys want to see for the future. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. In the description below, I'll leave a link to the code for this episode so you can check it out. You can bookmark it, come back to it later. If you forget any concepts or you just want to review the concepts I taught in this video, I'll mark everything up with comments so you can come back and read the code without having to rewatch the video, although your reviews are greatly appreciated. So yeah, I'll leave a link for that in the description below, so make sure to check it out. And another thing is I'll leave a link to our Discord server. It's a big community for programmers. You can ask for help on your programming projects if you're stuck on something, or maybe you can get some new friends. If you don't have any friends, there's lots of people here. It's growing really fast. You can find lots of people who are passionate about the same things as you. For example, if you like Minecraft Spigot development, you can find lots of people who like that. If you like C++, if you like Java, if you like web development, it's a really, really big programming community. So feel free to join. There's a link for that in the description below. And the last thing I want to tell you is that if you want to support this channel, you can click the join button below this video, and you can join this channel as a member for as low as 99 cents a month, and you can cancel at any time. You get some cool perks like early access to all of my new videos, a cool rank on my Discord server like you see right here on the side, YouTube members, and also you get to see yourself on the screen like you see right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. And thank you. Thanks a lot. And that's it. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And peace.